Hi, welcome to Talk About here on Shaw TV North Island. My name is John Twigg. Thanks for tuning in. Our guest today is Councillor Charlie Cornfield of Campbell River. Thanks, Charlie.
You're welcome, John. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's been an interesting time in the city, eh?
Okay.
Well, you just finished the finances,
Yes.
and I had the mayor on 2 weeks ago and the economic development officer last week.
Yeah.
But the gist of things is that the city is running remarkably well, and it's seen in polls to be working remarkably well. Now, we've just had a bunch of snow.
Something less?
Well, I've been here for a while, and I've seen the past. And actually, that's a good segue to your history.
Yeah.
What's you weren't born here?
Nope.
But when did
My
you
first
come?
trip was 1955.
Wow.
We used to come up on holidays, so yeah. And every time we drive into town, we used to stay down at Miracle Beach.
Oh yes.
And when you drove in and you'd see Big Rock, we knew we were getting close to Campbell River.
Yeah.
Because of course the town was much smaller back in those days.
Yeah.
And just where you come over that little rise by the Maritime Heritage Center,
Yeah.
I still get sort of a deja vu flashback to those days, because as you come over the crest of the hill and you'd see Lavers down on the right, the department store, and the sporting goods store on the left, and you'd see the fish boats and everything in by the government docks.
Yeah.
And every time I go over that, it gives me that same feeling that I had. And it's one of my favorite little views. And the town really hasn't changed much down in that Pier Street area.
Yeah.
It still has that same character and flavor. So.
Well, I've been coming here since 1949. I was born in March, and I was up here in May. But I don't remember that.
Oh, I remember it.
Yeah.
And it was,
Yeah.
but this is where we always wanted to finish up.
Yeah.
I worked pretty much all over the province.
You were a biologist, I think.
No.
No? What's?
No, my background is in forestry, and with a specialty in fisheries, wildlife, and recreation.
Okay.
So that's
Fisheries, wildlife, and
recreation.
There's a bit of biology in there.
Oh yeah. Biology is part of it, but
Yeah.
no, there's a difference.
So you were a forester?
No, I'm a
Forest
forest technician,
Oh, okay.
and I was the recreation specialist here and the visual landscape specialist. Also worked for Ducks Unlimited for 9 years as area manager. So when I first started with Ducks, I looked after everything from the Trans-Canada Highway North in BC.
Wow.
And then I was executive director for the BC Wildlife Federation for 3 years.
Know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you not also, well, I know you were involved in the water, the Campbell Lake system. You did a study of that. How did that happen?
Well, when I was on council, because I did 3 terms, first elected in '96, and I did 3 consecutive 3-year terms. And Mayor Lorney, Jim Lorney at the time, I was the first environment portfolio councillor. And he also asked me, or charged me with chairing the Air and Water Quality Committee. This is before pre-Walkerton, so Jim had a lot of good vision and knew he had enough political smarts and connections to know kind of which issues were coming up on the horizon. And so we formed the task force. We had staff, and of which Ron Neufeld is still there. He was our main staff person. It was, I think, Todd Andrews, Bill Harrison, and myself on the committee, and then staff resources. And yeah, we looked at it, did the plan for our watershed, the water management plan. And the new legislation was coming out subsequent or following the disaster at Walkerton.
Yeah.
So we were well geared to handle that. Then I sat for 2 years on BC Hydro's Recreation Planning Committee. So we looked at the whole reservoir system. The system was getting old, but before you can just go in and change things, you have to come up with a, what did we call it now, our water use plan, to be able to validate the need and the use of the water for power generation. But the reservoirs here in Campbell River are used a lot, extensively by people for public recreation and everything else. So as the recreation officer for the Ministry of Forests, I was the one they stuck on that committee. So we spent 2 years looking at the recreation, working with parks and the regional district and others on.
So you were working for the Ministry of Forests
Yeah.
at the time? Okay.
And yeah, I wore many hats when I was
Yeah.
a councillor because I worked while I was a councillor, so I still had my job.
Huh.
And following that, the water use plan commenced. And that was another 3 years to develop the water use plan, because it's a very complex system.
Yeah. A little while ago, I had some ideas about water, and you said to me, I know more about the water system than you ever will. And I took some offense, but then I
Of
learned
course
how
you
much
did.
he knows, because frankly, I do know more than most people about
Yes,
the water.
you do.
But you're right.
Yeah, it's
I will never know as much as you know on the water.
oh, you'll catch up. Maybe you'll pass me.
I don't think so.
I wish more people knew about it.
Yeah.
And the issues and what we have to try and deal with, like protecting water quality.
Yeah.
You know, as far as I'm concerned, should be our number one priority.
We got speedboats running around the water intake. Is the water intake?
You know, speedboats run around on
No.
John Hart Lake.
No?
Oh,
Oh, good.
no, we blocked all the access off to that years ago.
Oh, good.
And if you look at what other communities have done, in my study area when I was way back when was the Greater Victoria watershed. So I'm very familiar with it.
Yeah.
And I've been down when I was chair of that committee, also went down and met with Victoria's staff. They have a multi-barrier approach.
Right.
Now there it's a lot more restrictive than what we have. They have fences and gates and
Yeah, and actually, I saw Greater Vancouver's water district the
Much
same
the
way.
same, yeah.
Very hard to get into.
I've always been a believer that if you provide the knowledge to the public and explain why you're trying to do it and the importance of it, most of your people are going to abide by that because they will know and that it's the right thing to do. And so we've taken a multi-barrier approach, but a different approach. For instance, if you can drive into the lake, then you're going to drive in, right?
Well, I know from the John Hart Dam, you can take a nice little walk just north there, and you're walking on a beautiful trail that used to be a rail bed.
It's parks.
And there's recreational refuse in there, shall we say? Not a lot.
That's BC Parks, and that's one of my little pet peeves.
Okay.
Right, because that's provincial. We don't have control over that part. Yeah, it's BC Parks.
Huh.
And it's been one of those things. The refuse is a problem, so clean it up. If it's kept clean and tidy, people will keep it clean and tidy.
Yeah.
If you allow it to get littered and
Beer cans and 3 feet of water is what I saw.
then other people will come along and think that it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
And so, no, it's not acceptable, it's not okay. We used to have, the Forest Service back in the days had 2 campgrounds that were on John Hart Lake. Because then again, it's a matter of the level of use. If you get a little bit of use, is it a problem?
Yeah.
No. If you get a whole lot, it can be.
Yeah.
And so
Actually, not many people know you can get there.
you can't anymore.
Uh-huh.
When I was with the ministry, I tried using various approaches to control the access to the lake. They didn't work, and when they rebuilt Levelland Bay Provincial Park, we made a deal with parks. They needed sand and gravel, and I said, well, if you're coming out this way empty, I know you got a disposal problem with stumps. I want you to end haul and back drop all the stumps.
Yeah.
I said, stump the road. Just go in there and start dumping the stumps so that it becomes totally impassable. And we had tried all kinds of ways that would allow people to walk down or take a canoe down with a little wheeled thing. And we had a group of individuals that they were just going to do whatever they wanted. And I said, fine, now you won't be able to go in at all. And so
Yeah.
that's what we did. We stumped that road. The other one we had ditched and barricaded.
So Campbell River
Yeah.
has really a great water system.
Yes.
And it's
Sorry,
no, it's no problem. We're kind of modernizing it now with
Well, we're forced to modernize
Yeah.
it, right? Well, not necessarily modernize, but to change how it functions and operates. And,
But how do you feel about it?
well, I think it's important. I mean, we had a dam. It wasn't seismically correct. That means they've got to update the dam. We drew our water from penstocks. Our most vulnerable point, you may not know this, but under our water plan that we had in place, and the consultants, we had 3 engineering firms working on it. The most vulnerable point of our water supply was where the old wooden trestle bridge went across the penstocks. That we were most vulnerable there. So we had pushed for many years with hydro, even before the water use plan, to in between the plan being done and approved, which was about 8 years. And they're saying, hey, this is our vulnerable point. The load rating was constantly being downgraded on that, and so we had talked with them before about replacing the penstocks, because if a vehicle had broken through that bridge or the bridge had collapsed, if it broke those penstocks, we wouldn't have any water at all. This way, the new system is totally separate. The hydro is
This
up.
is the new water intake for the city water.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because they have to do a whole pile of work on the dam.
Yeah.
They are tunneling with a single tunnel from the powerhouse down below right up to the new intake at John Hart Dam. We could not have a water system that had a single source like that, because there was 3 penstocks we could draw from any one of the 3 before, so that if they had to shut down for maintenance down at the turbines or whatever, we could always get water from one of the other ones. Now, with a single tunnel, and they have to do any maintenance, they shut it off, then we're without water, right? We would be without water.
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, that's why the new system, so that we are independent and separate from hydro's operation. And, you know, it's a very expensive project, but we've built in redundancy. For instance, if a pump should fail, we have a backup pump. Everything is state-of-the-art, it's well designed. It even increases the amount of head, which means we won't have to do as much pumping around town like we used to.
Yeah.
So some areas will be, pressures will be changing, and we have to do some valves. But
Okay, I really wanted to talk about
and the deep
forestry,
water.
but is there anything on the water that you think people should know that we haven't talked about?
Yeah, for Pete's sake, be careful when you're in there, whether you're in there picking salal or mushrooms or just going for a walk, right? It's really important to be careful. Don't litter. You know, maintaining that water quality is crucial. Biggest risk after that is probably sedimentation. Right now we have an exemption from water that we're not required to put a filtration plant in, because the perimeter all around John Hart Lake is very
Pristine.
well, that's a good word.
Yeah.
Not like down in the valley where they're looking at $110 million for a filtration plant on the new system on their water. That's huge.
Yeah.
And it's borne by the residents, right?
Yeah.
So that's,
Yeah. Okay, now forestry. You're chair of the forestry task force.
Yes.
And they just put out an annual report, and
Yeah.
you've got a new work plan.
Yeah.
Bring us up to speed.
It's been a while to get them going.
Yeah.
We had one when I was mayor, as you're aware. We had the task force on forestry. Did great work, got things going. Then when I left, the task force kind of died. And so there was no work being done in 3 years. So we have a good group of very talented people, very knowledgeable people. And the idea is to get forestry back to see what we can do with it. So it has 3 main objectives. One is to pursue a community forest. The second one is to attract investment.
Yeah.
Right? In other words, what can we do It's more the economic development part of forestry.
Yeah.
What do we need to do to retain and enhance existing businesses?
Yeah.
Then how do we attract new business and new investment into the community
Yeah.
and derive more value out of our forests?
Yeah.
And then the third purpose and function is to advise council.
Right.
Right. Right now, I'm the only one that's trained in forestry, so levels of knowledge and information aren't the same. So the idea is that here's a body of very talented professional people and businessmen that were involved with the industry to advise council and say, this is an important issue you need to deal with, or this isn't. Here's a recommendation, et cetera. So,
Is there much harvestable timber within the boundaries of Campbell River?
inside the city?
Yeah.
Well, there's, 7,000 hectares, 7,000 acres of private managed forest land inside the city.
Yeah, that's not inconsiderable.
No, it isn't. And there is opportunities. One of the things that personally I don't like to see is a decline in small manufacturing. I'm a big fan of small. We've lost, we lost all our major manufacturing, our pulp mill, the big sawmill, Raven, Ocean Blue. We've also lost 50% of our small mills. Now, if you look at a small mill employing 10 to 15 people full-time, and you have 10 of those, that's 150 full-time jobs. That's a big chunk.
Good paying, family supporting jobs, as some politicians are.
Yeah, I wasn't going there, but that's equivalent to a major mill.
Yeah.
Right, when you look at it, that's a good sized mill. So that's a concern. And
well, we've still got a pretty good infrastructure of forestry, and as we're talking, there's an ad in the paper for Interfor is looking for an assistant forester in Campbell River. Yeah. That's a senior executive job.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, we like to refer to ourselves as the sort of the center for coastal forest operations.
Yeah.
Most, if not all, of the major companies have offices here in town. Our contractors, like the contractors that work for the companies, the major contractors located here.
Yeah.
If you look at the truck loggers membership, you'll find that a lot of them are here. You look at the roster of past presidents, and I like to refer to us as the forest intellectual capital. We have very, very talented people in the forest sector that are located here, be they private contractors, major companies, or RPS.
Capacity, strategic.
Yeah, the consulting firms. You start to look at, people don't appreciate just how much we're tied into forestry here. Yeah. Did you know that, and you'll love this as a segue, the first plantation forest, like planted area, recognized was at Knox Bay on, I think it's East Thurlow Island. Huh. That's in the whole province. Huh. Beaver Lodge actually beats it out. Huh. The Beaver Lodge forest lands was planted, and it's experimentally planted 2 years before Knox Bay.
It is a great segue, because I wanted to get into Beaver Lodge. I want to get in there and do industry in there, and if it's dedicated for research, but we could maybe be researching horse logging. I don't know.
Well, there's the conundrum.
That's why we.
You know my background, and I fought very hard for the retention of the Beaver Lodge. Yeah. Was not fun. Believe me, it was, a lot of people worked very hard to ensure. The company back in,
1940s?
Yeah, 40 or 41, and it was somewhere in there, or 31, I think.
They deeded it to the city?
No, absolutely not. No, and this is why, this will explain a lot of your future questions. The company had originally offered the provincial government 10,000 acres to be used, because we'd had that big fire in 38.
39.
And other countries were far ahead of us because we were very new as a country and learning as we go. But they offered 10,000 acres. The government goes, oh no, that's way too much. We can't use 10,000 acres. We'll take 1,000, right? And so The company donated the land to the province for experimental work in reforestation and forest management. So that's a donation, that's a gift, right? So with that gift comes a trust obligation. In other words, if I leave, say I was to leave property to the city, say, you can have this piece of property, provided you use it for this. And they say, okay.
That sounds
we
like
agree.
Yellow Point down at Nanaimo.
Yeah. Anyway, that's here. And the government had, and the official term was warranted and covenanted that it would be used for only those purposes. So that's a legal trust obligation. It's a stronger form of land ownership even than your deeded property. You own your property only as long as the government doesn't want to use it for something else, right? If they want to use it for putting a road through,
they're expropriating land at Site C right now.
Right, and they can do that.
Yep.
But they can't do that with a trust obligation, right? Because ideally, if you don't want to use it for the purpose intended, then give it back.
So Beaver Lodge is a great asset, but we can't do much with it.
Yes, we can.
Okay, what can we do with it?
There's lots in there. Well, it's for research and reforestation. They tried back in the days, and it was really kind of innovative because they didn't know a whole lot. So ponderosa pine, that grows up in the interior, especially in the Okanagan, they planted it here. Did it grow very well? Nope.
No.
But back in those days,
they learned.
They brought Sitka spruce down from the Queen Charlottes. It didn't do all that well either. And they planted Douglas fir from all over, right? And the Douglas fir have done tremendously well. There was one tree that Ron Burrell, and I measured one day. It was a meter across, 50 meters tall. It was 50 years old. That's exceptionally good growing sites and a good growth from the trees. So if you look down, have we ever done any research work on alder or maple or other woods that can be used for other things? If you look at root rot, which is something that people say is threatening the Beaver Lodge, if alder comes in, that breaks the cycle of the the fungus. You don't have to do much with alder to get it to grow.
Symbiosis of different plants.
Right. And
interesting.
So, but we haven't invested the amount of time and energy and money in hardwoods that we have in softwoods. So the Douglas fir and everything else.
We got only 5 minutes, so I'm going to jump.
Sorry.
It's
a great asset to the city.
Can we get the North Island College involved in that
Absolutely.
somehow?
Always tried to. And still working on it. But it's looked after by the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations. There is no more Forest Service. So.
Now there is an old railway right away that runs through the Beaver Lodge. What's the status of that now? Can it ever be reused for transit?
Well, it's there, and the bridges were put in so that it would provide access for firefighting and other things in there. So it's maintained as a road, and then there's the old airport main. It's on the closer to the highway. So there is vehicle access through. Can it be turned into a road, for instance, that could be one of the city roads? Nope. No. That's not its intent. Could it be used for vehicles or to move people in there to do research work? Absolutely.
Railway logging for research?
Potentially, but I'm not sure that you could come up with a research project on it when we got WAS just north of here that's got the railway.
I want to get a tourist train in there, but I think I'm not going to get it.
We had looked at it. Because if you look at forest management, part of that is educating the public and teaching them about it. If it was an attraction, it would draw people in there. I had also wanted at one time to put a canopy walkway, because we don't have one of those. Right? Because then it draws people in. And we used to refer to it as passive education. Gone are the days, where you walk along a trail, it's got a sign, this is a fungus, this is a tree, this is a cranberry bush. Those things, people get tired of that. So what you want to do is put them in a forest setting where they have fun, and do incidental education about the forest.
Yeah.
Right? Do you realize why the forest is this way?
Yeah. Okay. The last thing, I guess, the work plan for 2017 for the Forestry Task Force.
Yes.
What's coming?
Well, we've been working on the community forest, but it's the government right now is with the First Nations issues.
And the election in May.
Yeah, and so it's reached sort of a point that
You got to wait for a few months to see where things will
yeah.
break out. Yeah.
And but it also means talking to a lot of people and sort of
Yeah.
behind the scenes things, working with First Nations and saying,
Yeah.
hey, how about we form a partnership?
Yeah.
Because we're talking about our community.
Yeah.
This belongs to everyone.
Yeah.
You know, the community, the things that we would get out of a community forest would benefit every
Yeah.
one of us. So let's form a partnership. Let's involve everybody.
Well, you got it's a 4-year term, so you got 2 years left.
2 years left. Yep.
So you do have time to get some of this stuff going.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the key things, I hesitate to bring it up, but at the Union of BC Municipalities Convention, they passed that resolution on no more old growth logging on Vancouver Island. Comes from the people that don't understand how forestry works. Not all old growth is great big trees,
Yeah.
right? Not all old growth forests attract people to go there and use it.
Yeah.
And
Some
I
of-
spent my entire career doing recreation management and public use management.
Can old growth forest get decadent?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
That's a good place to end because
Just like you and me.
we could go
get
for
old.
another half hour.
Yeah, we get old and then we,
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
We
my
become
guest has
less
been
productive.
Charlie Cornfield. Thank you, Charlie, for coming
You're
in.
welcome, John, and
Well-
Merry Christmas. And Merry
Thank you,
Christmas
too.
to everybody out there in Campbell River,
Good.
too.
Okay. Thank you, Tiana, Andrew, and Sam for working the cameras. Thank you, Chaz and Marjorie, for helping, well, actually not helping, for doing, putting on Talk About. I want to thank Brian Shaw of Mackey Research, who sponsored the show again this season. And I want to plug my Art of Art show. My father, Arthur Twigg's art is on display now through the end of January.
At the gallery?
In the Mackey Research Building. I rented a little office in there,
good.
and at 1631B Island Highway. So, happy holidays, and look forward to seeing you next year.